What's going on, everybody? My name is Corbin Lubert. I am the head strength coach down here at Allegiant Gym South Bay. We have a great slew of questions here for our Block 4 AMA. Let's dive right into it. For my first question, the questionee asks why we do 3 or 4 different starting positions for the CARs, our controlled articular rotations that we do during movement prep. So to give some context here, we go a standing position with practice 1. We do a quadruped or quadruped position on practice 2. That's on all fours, hands and knees. And then we do a combination of tall kneeling and side lying and seated for practice 3. And then on practice 4, we go back to a quadruped hands and knees position, but we add in what we call the segmental spine series, where we do our linear extension and flexion of the spine in multiple positions. So the reason that we do this is when we change our position, we're changing the way that gravity loads the joint and the tissue that we're moving. So if I'm standing, now there's a downward force on my spine, and when I'm coming up into an overhead flexed position at the top during like a shoulder car, that's where gravity is trying to pull my arm back down. That affects the musculature differently than if I am now side lying. If I come up overhead, now all of these lateral muscles of the shoulder are having to work a little bit more, but it's not necessarily the flexor, the overhead muscles that are getting affected by gravity so much. So every time we change our position, we're orienting that joint differently, and it's going to interact with space and gravity in a different way. So really, it's got less to do with this idea of, hey, our practice 2 quadruped cars are better at warming that joint or warming the body up for that particular day, and more about just checking all of our boxes and making sure we have a really good, well-rounded training program. And if we structure it or we systematize it to, on this day we do standing, on this day we do quadruped, on this day we go side lying, that just makes sure that, hey, we're always getting a little bit of everything or enough of everything that we need. We're not just doing the things that are easy or convenient or that we like and neglecting the things that might be inconvenient or we don't like. So that's why we do our cars in different positions on different days. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Let's move on to the next one. So first nutrition question of the day. This person wants to know if they are trying to lose weight, what is best to eat prior to class? Is it carbs or is it protein? And then they have a follow-up question on whether or not they should eat an hour to class or half an hour to class. So let's start with that second question first. I'd say don't overthink this. It doesn't matter that much. I'd say probably don't, give yourself at least a half hour prior to getting in whatever training, whether it's training here at Allegiant for some strength training, if it's going for a run or something like that. Give yourself probably at least 30 minutes to help with the digestion process. Everything else, whether you go 30 minutes, an hour, somewhere in the middle, longer, is probably going to be more oriented around how you feel and whether or not that you have energy or you feel kind of slowed down. Maybe even stuff that you ate. If you ate something that was like really, really heavy, you might have to take an hour versus if you have like a banana and some fruit, you might be good to go in a half hour. So this is really like what we used to tell athletes all the time is, hey, figure out, your timing before game day, figure out your timing of your meals and do what works for you so that you're not super hungry in the middle of the game, but you're also not feeling like you're, weighed down by indigestion. And then keep whatever meal that you're having pre-game pretty similar, if not exactly the same, so that there's, no surprises come game day. Now, when you're training 3 times a week and maybe even 4 times a week, if you're always coming in the morning, you might want to kind of vary things a little bit and switch things up. But, if it's fruit, you can try different kinds of fruit and that type of thing. So I wouldn't worry so much about the, 30 minutes or an hour. Not going to make a huge difference from a optimization standpoint, but it might make a difference to you individually based on your digestion and what you're eating and those type of things. So try to keep it relatively consistent, figure out what works for you, and go from there. Now, to handle the first part of the question, what should you eat before? Is it carbs or is it protein? specifically for somebody who wants to lose weight, if we're comparing the two, the answer is always going to be protein, right? If we have, whether your goal is to gain weight or lose weight, we want you eating 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein per day. And that's just going to be split up evenly amongst your meal. So let's say that I am 200 pounds, then I need 200 grams of protein throughout the day. Let's say I'm eating 4 meals. So at each meal, I'm going to have 50 grams of protein. So that's just the way that that's broken up. Now, if I'm eating before a workout and I have 50 grams of protein, and that protein is not necessarily in the form of something that's going to be digested super quickly, like a whey protein shake or really any protein shake, maybe even like a chicken breast or something like that. And just say that, it's like a really heavy, like maybe even a fattier cut of steak or something like that. That might be a situation where, hey, I need kind of an hour to get that digestion process to a point where I should work out, versus if I just have a whey protein shake and a chicken breast or something like that to get or even like, a whey protein shake mixed with some skim milk or something that's just going to go down really easy, start the digestion process quickly, then maybe I could take 30 minutes and get into my workout. Now, for losing weight, we want to center our carbohydrate intake around our workouts. So, if we're feeling from an energy standpoint, like if we're just pulling ourselves through the mud, trying to get the motivation to work out, especially on a higher volume block, like giant sets, and we need a little bit of a pick-me-up, carbohydrates could really do the trick with getting us into a more motivated state to get that training session in. So while I would prefer us to probably backload our carbohydrates a little bit if we are looking to lose weight, and that is meaning post-workout, in that typical post-workout anabolic window. But if we need to have, again, some type of fruit or something prior to the workout, that's not going to throw us super off track in our weight loss journey either. So I would still say make smart choices with your carbohydrates pre-workout, just like you should have smart choices with your carbohydrates post-workout. Still take into account kind of the digestion process and how quickly this is going to move through your system. Something like, that's higher in fiber, like potato or quinoa, like it's going to move through your system a little slower than something like a banana or, some other type of fruit that's going to be digested pretty quickly. So taking all of that into consideration, this is going to be a really big individualized process of a lot of trial and error on your part, but hopefully that helps you answer your question. To piggyback off of that, my next question asks about what is the best thing to eat post-workout. Post-workout, we want to get some carbohydrates in for sure. So this is going to depend on our goals. If our goals are to gain weight, add lean muscle mass, then that's going to be, we're going to eat more carbohydrates. If our goal is to lose weight, we're still going to eat some carbohydrates, but it's not going to be as many as if we were trying to gain weight. And it might be that's where we get the majority of our non-vegetable, non-fruit carbohydrate in for the day. So that might be where I have some type of a whole grain, at least more of a whole grain post-workout. That's going to help fuel that muscle building anabolic process if we're trying to gain weight, or if we are trying to lose weight, that's going to help us maintain our muscle mass. We're strength training, not necessarily to lose weight, although it can help, but we're strength training in order to maintain the muscle mass and make sure that we're burning fat and not burning muscle in our weight loss journey. And having some type of carbohydrate is going to help ensure that that happens. And then again, just like I said in the previous question, protein is just split up throughout the day. So if you're having a post-workout meal, and again, if I'm looking to get 200 grams of protein in throughout the day, now post-workout meal has 50 grams of protein in it, then I'm going to have that there as well. And again, I could probably choose some faster digesting protein sources there, stuff that's leaner, stuff like protein shakes, things like that, so that it works through in that anabolic window, plays off those carbohydrates a little bit better. My next question asks for easy, healthy protein options. With this question, I don't think I'm going to tell you anything that you won't find on the internet or that you don't inherently know, but easiest options, but also potentially, depending on the quality of the product, a more expensive option per serving and per, level of fullness. Your protein shakes are always a go-to, like, hey, real easy to throw this in a shaker bottle, mix it up. Now, the thing with protein shakes is it's a great, easy way to help get your protein levels or your protein consumption up. But like I said, it can be a little bit expensive. They can get a little gross if you're doing multiple in one day. It just gets a little bit redundant. So I usually try to push people to not do more than one shake or one scoop of protein a day. And that is an easy way to get an extra 20, 30 grams in there. And then plus, if you start doing like 2 or 3 scoops a day, then you're just working your way through that bottle much, much quicker. And you end up spending more money on protein powders. And again, if you're getting it from a good quality source, it's not the cheapest thing to do. And I would argue that probably going to Costco and getting some of the other options that I'm going to talk about here would be a better, cheaper option that will also keep you fuller longer. So from there, it's personally, I'm not somebody who needs to have a big elaborate meal night after night. I am perfectly okay with some type of protein source, some type of carbohydrate source, and some veggies, maybe something that's a fermented and a fruit to go along with it. So, but my typical grocery haul is going to be stuff like chicken thighs. It's just so much better than chicken breast. That little bit of extra fat isn't going to make a huge difference from a diet standpoint, but it makes the chicken taste a whole lot better. So stuff like that. If you eat pork, then pork tenderloins, pork chops, even, like a 95-5, so 95% lean, 5% fat, ground beef, ground bison, ground turkey, like all really fantastic options for doing things like burgers or even, like tacos, stuff like that. And then a little bit of red meat here and there is definitely, like once, maybe twice a week, going to be a really good option from a, vitamin and mineral standpoint, as well as getting your proteins up. And then trying to eat salmon if it's within the budget, or some type of fish to get your omega-3s in, as well as a really good high quality protein source. I still think we probably at this point, with just the quality of seafood and fish that's out there, should be supplemented with an omega-3 source. But it doesn't mean that eating it as a part of your diet isn't going to be really beneficial for yourself as well. So I guess those are my go-tos, being chicken thighs, pork tenderloin, pork chops, some type of ground beef, ground bison, maybe some ground turkey, and then, a few cuts of red meat here and there, as well as some fish. And when you ask for easy, simple options, to me, those are all like, yeah, I can throw this on the grill, I can throw it in a skillet, it's going to be cooked up in under an hour, good to go. To me, that's the easiest way to eat whole foods and get my protein goals on a daily basis where they need to be. All right, getting into some questions about training. So this question asks how to mitigate leg soreness. Any tips on recovery? So this block with our giant sets is going to be a doozy. And when we look at the way the programming is built out, our practice 1 is, 4 exercises in a row that are all quad dominant, squat oriented. So we really want a high level of fatigue and soreness basically the rest of the week until that next practice 1. Right? Because we're not doing a ton of squatting quad dominant patterns on the other day. There might be 1 exercise each on the B series, but it's unilateral. The load is going to be much, much lower. And it really takes a second tier to whatever's in the A series for that day. So we want to have some type of soreness, because that's a signal that we trained the muscles we wanted to train. We trained hard enough to cause an adaptation. So this idea that we can just go to some recovery studio and ice bath and sauna, and I can get in some Normatec boots and I can foam roll or hypervolt or Theragun and really get rid of this muscle soreness. Like, not only is it not the best idea, or even worse than that, like take a bunch of Advil or something like that, that's actually going to blunt that adaptation process. But this idea that like, hey, I got to get rid of the soreness because it's not good, is really the wrong way to look at training in general, but specifically this training block. If you're doing it right, you're gonna be sore. So now I can also understand from this standpoint, with the way that we structure our program, the quick turnaround between Friday and Monday. So at some point you do have to go from doing a practice 1 or a practice 3 on Friday right into doing it again on Monday. And if that soreness hasn't dissipated over the weekend, that's gonna be a problem for you. So, things we always talk about, right? 7 to 9 good quality hours of sleep. If you've got, practice 3 on Friday and then practice 3 again on Monday, And that wouldn't be a weekend that I'm going to go out drinking with friends and, really sacrifice my sleep and sacrifice my nutrition. I want to be as locked in as possible. And this is something I try to push to new members a lot, is that team class is meant for people who want to put some effort into not only their training, but their recovery as well. So if that's not something that you're willing to do from a lifestyle standpoint, maybe strength is the better program for you on given blocks or given weeks. Sleep, nutrition is going to be another one, making sure you're hitting your protein, making sure you are getting some carbohydrates in specifically post-workout, making sure we're avoiding really high inflammatory foods are all going to be things that are going to help you recover just a little bit faster. And then water intake. We want to get half our body weight in ounces of water. And again, I'm going to put a very high priority on doing that, and even doing more so than that, making sure I'm replacing electrolytes and things like that in between those Friday to Monday sessions so that I'm ready to go again on Monday. Next question asks, will the post-exercise workouts be brought back? So I'm guessing that this stems from the workouts this block, at least this first week, being a little bit shorter. So typically what we see is that if the workouts are short on week 1, that's because people are doing what the coaches are telling them to do and going kind of light. And that makes it a little bit easier. You have a tendency to take less rest and you get done a little faster. Typically what happens though, by week 4, the weights get heavier, people figure out the protocol, they figure out the block, and we get much closer to taking up the full hour. And personally as a coach, I saw that even from Monday to Friday, where Monday we were getting done with plenty of time left. And then on Friday, it was like, oh, wow, we're pretty much right up against the clock here. On top of that, you always have an opportunity to do the post-workout exercises if there's time after class on your own. If you know what they are, the Aldoa exercises, the Bretzel exercises, any type of fascial stretching or resting postures, you could probably find a corner to get those done on your own, and you don't necessarily need a coach to take you through them, and you don't need the board to tell you like, hey, you got to do this today. If you think that if you have kids and it's like, hey, I shouldn't have to tell you to pick up after yourself or do your homework or go to bed on time, like same thing for you as an adult, right? Like I shouldn't have to tell you to take care of your spine and do your Aldoa exercises after we squat. If that's something that's important to you and you feel better afterwards, don't rely on the coach or blame the gym for not putting the post-workout exercises up on the board. Just do it. Get like Nike. Come on. Okay, more giant set questions. So this person asked 2 questions. 1, what kind of adaptations can we expect from giant sets? And 2, why is everybody so sore? And those 2 questions are definitely interlinked. So let's start with the second one. We are so sore because you're doing 160 reps basically in a row of very similar, if not the same, movement patterns, training the same muscle groups in very similar ways. And that amount of volume under load is going to cause a lot of tissue damage. And when you have that much tissue damage, you have incredible amounts of soreness. Now, the other thing that you see is that muscle bounce back, it rebuilds, and you get a hypertrophic effect. And that means that we are adding lean muscle mass. The body is building that tissue back bigger than it was previously. And that is the adaptation that we're looking for out of giant sets, is to add muscle mass. Not to say that it's not also a great block for potentially losing some weight, changing our body composition and decreasing fat mass. You're, on a squat day, for example, where you're going from a heels elevated back squat to a med ball exertion squat, to a kettlebell front squat, to a dumbbell hack squat, your heart rate's going to be up. You're probably going to be at least in zone 2, if not zone 3, or maybe even higher after doing like 3 straight minutes of squatting. It is probably a good opportunity to burn some fat, but that's a secondary or maybe even a tertiary goal of adding some lean muscle mass, building some muscle, and that's why you're so sore. This person goes back to nutrition and says that they would love to see a daily nutrition or meal plan brought to you by Allegiant. So the reason that we don't do something like this is because everybody's got something different, right? They've got different dietary habits, preferences. Maybe it's a religious thing. Like everybody wants to eat a little bit of a different way and different meals and things like that. And it would be impossible for us to accommodate everybody all of the time. And what we really strive to do with a product like our Nutrition Blueprint is give you guys a foundation of habits of how to, calculate and count macros and calories, and provide, like I said, the foundation so that whether your goals or your habits or your lifestyles change, you guys always have that a foundation, which is going to help you mold your diet to whatever your goals and your lifestyle is at that point. So a great example of this is when I came back from working overseas in China, where I didn't have control necessarily of what I was eating. I was living in a hotel room. So I ate every single meal out. I didn't speak the language well enough to really know what I was ordering. So I ate a lot of the same stuff because it was comfortable for me and I knew what it was, not necessarily because it was good for me. So I came back and I was quite a bit heavier with a body composition I wasn't quite comfortable with. I came back, I was much more familiar with Western foods, and I was able to diet down to a body weight and body composition that I was comfortable with because I have this foundation of, I know what's healthy here and I understand how to calculate things like proteins and carbs and fats and track them over a period of time. That's a good, safe rate to lose weight and not hopefully lose a bunch of muscle mass. But then once I hit that goal of whatever my body weight was at that time, then if I want to shift to, hey, let's gain some of that weight back, but I want it to be more muscle mass and fat mass this time, I can take the same foundation that I have and just reapply it or reverse engineer it to gain weight. And it's the same thing if we want to just maintain. So that foundation is way more valuable to you than a daily, hold your hand, here's your meals for today, good luck. If you ever move or just, whatever happens, that would just really leave you hanging. And we don't want to do that. We want to give you the tools to be successful throughout the rest of your life from a dietary standpoint. All right, so what exercises in this block, and again, I think this is mostly talking about the team program with giant sets, and this person puts the caveat of what exercises, if any, are we gonna progress in weight week to week? So this is gonna change based off of the practice or the day. So on practice 1, my thought would be increase the weight on the back squat, keep all the other weights as similar as possible. The caveat here is that if you go to a big class, you might have a bottleneck with something like the med balls, maybe even the kettlebells, where you get stuck with a heavier med ball than you had the prior week, in which case you'd increase the weight on the med ball and maybe keep the back squat weight as similar or very similar or even the same as it was the previous week. So the short answer to that would be increase the weight on one of the 4 exercises in the giant set each week and try to keep that exercise the same week to week. But if there's a, factor outside of your control where something jumps up on you one week, then that's the exercise that's going up that week. Now and that pretty much applies to practice 3 as well. So I'd go up on the barbell RDL and I would try to keep the weight on the kettlebell deadlift, the med ball Zercher good morning, and the dumbbell RDL pretty similar week to week. Where this gets a little funky is on our practice 2 and our practice 4, where that first exercise is pull-ups or dips. So body weight exercises, if you're not adding load to those exercises, you can't really, titrate them up or titrate them down. So you have to pick a different exercise in order to progressively overload week to week. So let's start with practice 4. You've got dips, and then you've got a close grip med ball push-up, then you've got a dumbbell bench, then you've got some more push-ups. So you really only have one option there, and that's the dumbbell bench. Pretty simple. Now on the pull-up day, we go pull-up, and then we get into a kettlebell row, then we get into a chest-supported row. So you can really pick any of those exercises to go up in. And again, this might not be consistent week to week based on which equipment's available and who you get paired up with if you're going to a big class. So same rules apply. I would say A2 is probably your best option for increasing the load just because it's earlier on in the workout. However, only increase one exercise each week and try to keep that exercise consistent week to week. All right, so my next question asks, what happened to the stretch videos? So if you go to our YouTube page and you just search Elysia Gym, you click on our YouTube page, when Coach Tim uploads the stretch class for that block, which is always done when we release the block, it's right there in the upload section. And as we upload other stuff like these AMA videos, it kind of gets pushed back. We do put all those stretch videos in a playlist under stretch videos. So you have access to not just this blocks, but all of the previous blocks as well. So if there's one you don't like so much, and there's one that you really liked, or if you're doing multiple a week, you can always go back and do other ones as well. But it's all in a playlist on our YouTube page, just titled Stretch. So that's where you can find them, and they're there. The other thing you should do is like and subscribe to that YouTube page so you don't miss any of the stretch videos or the Ask Me Anythings. All right, everybody, that is our Ask Me Anything here for block number 4. I appreciate everybody who submitted questions, and let's have a great block. Make sure we get signed up for our classes. Make sure we're focusing on our habits so that we recover really, really well. And I'll see you guys next time. Corbin out.